Are you ready?
Starting now?
Now you just messed it up, you knob. God, you know that the shit that we go through for this, huh?
I know. Fuckers better appreciate it. When we started, we were just like, yeah, we're just going to do this, man. You know, shoot our wad into the wind and see what happens. What's the title of this podcast again?
I don't know. I don't know. Something with a penis, I guess.
Right.
Our fucking faces are everywhere now.
Right.
But
you're welcome, ladies.
Right. Popular with the ladies. Right. Oh, I'm not even going to apologize because hopefully it sounds fucking hilarious.
Yeah, totally. This is fucking explicit now.
The explicit button. Let me use my finger.
La, 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 la.
It is time for another episode of Sober, Not Mature. And that episode starts now. All right, everyone. Welcome once again to another episode of Sober, Not Mature. And we do have a guest tonight. And if anyone's been following, I don't know, kind of the progress or the progression, I guess is a better way to put it, as far as how we've gotten this individual guest on here. I'm just going to start off by saying no legs were humped. Nobody was blown, as far as I know, to get on here. So there was, if you want to know what I'm talking about, you're going to have to check out Instagram and the review that she did for us. But I'll let her introduce herself. So, Alysse, if you can give us a brief introduction, and then we'll get started.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. My name is Alysse, and I am the founder of the Sober Curator, SoberCurator.com. You can find us on all the socials. And we are a lifestyle hub, resource, magazine. I don't know what you want to call us. And we just turned 3 yesterday. So it's something I started with some friends in the pandemic. I'm a person who identifies as being in long-term recovery. And I also love magazines and lifestyle content. And I was trying to find a place where I could find all the cool stuff that's happening in the online recovery world, because there's so many podcasts and books and movies and merchandise and all the things. And I was like, well, I need a one-stop shop that tells me where all the cool stuff is. And when I couldn't find it, and then we got hit with the pandemic, I was like, well, F it, I'll just build it. And so we did. And now we're 3.
Yeah, you know, I was actually
Congratulations.
And congratulations. I saw you you did a video of you and the pig. So explain the pig that you call 3, if I remember correctly.
Oh, it's not a pig, it's a sheep. But that's like cute that you thought it was a pig.
It looked like a little piglet. So I'm sorry, it was a sheep.
Yeah, it was a sheep. Yeah, back when I turned 3, that was a gift to me from one of my work wives for life. Dixie Duncan is her name, and we were working at a magazine together. And she gave me 3, this little stuffed animal, and I had him in my office for a really long time, and I've kept him all these years. He's starting to look a little worn down. He's getting a little dirty. My dogs like to drag him around the house. He's also been humped by my dogs a couple times. I'm not gonna lie.
Nice.
I'm not gonna lie. I feel like this is a safe space, and I can talk about that here.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
We want you to.
Yeah. I am known for collecting junk. I actually have a sign in my house that says it's not hoarding if your stuff is cool, right?
Right.
And so I am a collector of knickknacks. My house looks like a gift shop, and 3 is just one of the characters that you will find here.
Well, you know, at some point, and Mike was kind of giggling over there a little bit, because his house is exactly what you just described. Super fucking cool. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's got so much shit in there, but the point of it is that you can walk through this house. It doesn't feel cluttered or anything like that.
Right.
And I mean, there's stories behind all of it. So at some point, we have talked about it, that we need to just run a video through that house and let him take a tour and throw that up on YouTube, because, you know, people have commented, you know, he'll take some pictures every once in a while, or, you know, we've had video on, and people are like, what is that back there?
Yeah,
but,
I
all
think
my
I would
creepy
like your
stuff.
space. I think I would like your
would.
space for sure. And the only time I don't like my junk is when it's time to dust. I don't
Dust.
like, it's like, oh, the dusting is the worst, right? The dusting
Yes,
is
it
the
is.
worst. But
Uh-huh.
like the stuff is so cool, and like, I'm a kid of the 80s and a lover of the 90s. So like
Mm-hmm.
I love art and knickknacks, and so I just, and things and fashion. So I just collect and I collect and I collect, and then I moved into a bigger space, and I thought that would like space it out, but as it turns out, I just get more. I just
You
get
just get
more.
more. Just keep
Yep.
filling it up. Yep.
I have a problem with wanting more. Am I in
Wonder
the
where
right
that's from.
place? Am I in the right place?
Yes,
Yeah.
you are.
Well, yeah, it's funny. So Mike and I, and I don't know if you've listened to other episodes, and if you haven't, it's not a huge deal. But we went through the same sober living facility, and then ended up in a 3-quarter house. And Mike and I spent a year living in the
Mhm.
same bedroom
Right.
of a duplex, basically, an upper and lower of a house. So I mean, he had stuff, and then we moved into this 2-bedroom place where we both had our own rooms. They were good sized rooms, right, Mike? I mean, considering,
Yeah.
I think.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
So then he got some more stuff, and then he
Mm-hmm.
moved into a
Mhm,
house
mhm.
after I moved back to Wisconsin, which
Yep.
was, I mean, not a huge house, but certainly
No.
not small, medium size. And then he got more stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the first time that, because you've been in your house, what now, 3 years or coming up on 4?
4.
Okay, so
Yeah,
it
it was
was.
4 a couple of weeks ago. Or shit, no, this last week.
Oh, really?
I posted it on Facebook. It was moving day, like last week.
Oh shit! Yeah, that's right. Okay, I
Yep.
did see that. But the thing of it is I did not. So that was, again, you figure August or end of July of
Right.
2019, and I was heading to, my daughter got married in October, and I had all this shit going on, so I didn't get out to see his house, and then the pandemic hit. So I think you were in there 2 years, I think, before I even saw your house.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I walked in there, I'm like, "Fuck, dude!" I'm like, it's seriously it's a big older house in Cleveland,
Mhm.
and the thing, he's got shit everywhere. But I don't mean that in the bad way. It's just that
Right.
stuff, And
That's
So
yeah.
tough.
what's the vibe? What am I gonna like explain, like paint a picture to me of one of the rooms? Like what's the vibe?
Well, pretty much all of the rooms. It's rock and roll and
Uh-huh.
real old horror movies.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see you. That's
Yeah.
cool.
You've watched the Addams Family, the original
Mhm.
60s show, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Their
Yeah.
house is a museum. So's mine.
Yeah, I can dig it. I can totally dig it.
Yeah, and he has and what was it, a friend of yours that found the coffee table for you, or how did that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, my coffee table is an actual coffin. I had a buddy that worked at a funeral home, and one of their clients had passed away over in Greece, and they shipped him back in this small coffin. And then when he got here to Cleveland, they put him in a regular casket for the services and the funeral and all that stuff. And he got hold of me. He said, "Hey, man, do you want this?" I said, "Yes." It's a small coffin, and it's lined and everything, and so my lovely girlfriend got me a wonderful piece of glass to put on top of it, and I have a skeleton in it now and a bunch of black roses, and it's very cool.
I do wish you could see my face reacting to this part of the conversation. But I will see your coffin, and I will raise you an urn. So I have a story. I back in my, again, magazine days, I was we're doing some ads for this like traveling pop-up auction thing that was traveling around the country, and I was really concerned that they weren't going to see a return on investment with the ads they bought with me. So I was like, obviously I have to go there and go shopping. Somebody has to take one for the team. And so I went, but all this stuff, the stuff was really cool. Like I remember there was like a life-size statue of Iron Man, and trust me, if I could have like dropped $8,000 on it, I would have, but couldn't. That wasn't in the budget at the time. But so I was like, I gotta buy something. So I was like, oh, there's a vase with a lid. I'm gonna get that, and I'll put candy in it. That's cool. So I bought this vase with a lid, and I brought it home, and somebody came over, and they're like, why do you have that? I think it was my mom. She was like, why do you have that? I was like, oh, it's my new candy dish. It's a vase with a lid. She's like, no, that's an urn. I was like, oh, is that why there's a pair of them? Is that why there was two? Because it was a pair. So
Right.
yeah, I bought urns as candy dishes. I
Nice.
later sold them in a garage sale, so they're somewhere. But yeah.
Ah, damn. Yeah, I've got lots of funeral home stuff, and I've got actually ashtrays all over the house of from like the 50s from funeral homes.
Wow.
Yeah.
he's got again, we always say this, we're neither one of us is unique, but all of his shit is extremely cool and unique. But the coffin table, it's it kind of blows people away, but
Mhm.
it looks really nice. I mean, he's I think we might have taken a picture of that the one time when I was out there, but
Yeah.
it's just, again, one of these days we're gonna have to run through this thing and take a video of it. But so
Well, you guys, maybe we can start a new TV show that's like, remember the shows where it was like lifestyles of the rich and famous, and it would show like
Right.
celebrities' houses. Like, what if
Yeah.
it's like sober people's houses? Like,
Right.
let's like, what do they hoard now? Like, that could be
Sober cribs.
sober cribs. Yes.
Lifestyles of the dark and twisted.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
See, we put a couple of sick minds, or a few sick minds together. We'll figure something out.
Yeah, there's a very thin line between sick and creative.
Right.
Very thin, very thin.
So Alysse, I mean, and again, I know I mentioned before we started about our kind of, format-ish type of thing, but we'd love to hear, a little bit about your recovery story, but Michael explained that. And then we want to hear about, what you're doing at the Sober Curator and all that good stuff. But you probably already know this, but Mike, kind of give us a rundown of what we look for on that part.
Right. Well, as I always say, we know how to get fucked up. We know how to fuck up our lives and fuck up the lives of everybody around us. We know how to do that. Drunkalogs are not what we want to hear. What we want to hear is the solution. We definitely want to hear where you came from, and, a little qualifying here and there, but, tell us, your story, but what you're doing today to stay sober, because that's what we want to hear.
Yes.
And that's what I like about you guys, and I like about this podcast. Because I can't hear any more drunkalogs. I really can't. I can't. Like, you guys, I'm 17 years sober. I'm so over them.
Right.
I'm so over them. In fact, so many people are like, Alysse, you're going to write a book? What about your memoir? And I was like, do we really think the world needs another middle-aged white woman's memoir right now? I don't think so. I don't think so. So,
Right.
But I will qualify, and I will do it with this very simple story. My nickname used to be Bob. My last name is Bryson, and it was an acronym for Blackout Bryson. And
Oh, nice.
I wore that like a badge of honor.
Mhm.
So if that doesn't, I was a blackout drinker. That should tell you a lot just in and of itself. I got sober at 30. I had pulled a geographic. I had moved to Seattle. So I grew up in a small town where my parents still live, that is halfway between Seattle and Portland in the Pacific Northwest. I've always lived here. I've never lived anywhere else. I love Washington. And I know you all think it rains here all the time, but I'm going to let you in on a little pro tip. We just tell you that to keep you away. We don't want any more of you coming here. But I love it here. I love traveling, but this is the place that I call home. And but I had at the age of 30, I had really run through that small town, and I was no longer doing a good job of keeping everything compartmentalized. I was a single mom. My kid was 8 or 9 at the time. He went to a private Christian school where my mom was the teacher. Both my grandfathers were pastors. And it was starting to get really messy. I had burned a lot of bridges, and it was a really small town. And quite honestly, I'd slept with everybody I wanted to sleep with, and I slept with a lot of people I didn't want to sleep with.
Right.
So that happened. But I woke up one day and was like, I can't live here anymore. That was it. I can't live here anymore. And at the time, I was working for the local newspaper. I had been there for 6 or 7 years. And as it turned out, that was a great career for me as being a salesperson in advertising, because I have no problem talking. I have no problem making friends. I'm good at telling people what they should like and what they should do. And a lot of deals happen over drinks, right? So it was like a great job. So I didn't want to leave the job. I just wanted to leave the town. So my kid's dad and his stepmom lived in Seattle. And I was like, I know, I'm gonna move to Seattle. I'm gonna work for the Seattle Times, and I'm just gonna start over. I'm gonna, you know how we love that like clean slate thing.
Oh yeah, sure.
So 30 days later, literally 30 days later, I was sitting in an apartment drunk by myself, and I had a job at the Seattle Times. So that's the other thing about those of us in the rooms. We're like, we're really good at getting what we want, and we're really good at hustling. And so I did all of that. And then the problem is, and you guys know this, is wherever you go, there you are. Right. And so
Mhm.
I was like, oh shit, I'm the problem. So it wasn't the small town. It wasn't all those things. It was me. And now I'm in the big city as a single mom with a pretty limited resources. And that is when my drinking home alone really, really, really took off. Up to that point, I was just the party girl, club girl, dive bar girl. Like I was always out, but I had some kind of balance around it. I wasn't fully pickled, although I was, but it really unraveled really quickly. And in the 6 month window, like my control just really stopped. I couldn't control it anymore. And by the grace of God, I was carpooling with this gal that worked at the newspaper, and I don't think either one of us cared for each other very much. Um, but if we carpooled together, we would both get free parking. And Seattle parking was expensive then, and it's expensive now, right? So I was
Right.
all about it for the free parking. And so I started carpooling with this woman and complaining about my life as a drunk single mom, like woe is me. And she would just listen to me while we were stuck in traffic and be like, "Yeah, I know what that's like. I used to live like that. I don't anymore. If you ever want to know what I did, I'd be happy to tell you, show you,
Mm.
etc." And I was
Mhm.
like, yeah, no, I don't even like you. Why would I want any advice from you, right? But as time went on and we spent more and more hours together in the car on the freeway, I softened and I realized she had something to say. She had something to offer, and I had nothing. I just was getting more and more broken and more twisted on the inside. And sure enough, the day came that I actually called my sister. It was a Saturday. I'd been up all night, and you know all the reasons why we stay up all night, right? And
Mhm. I
and
know
I called,
several.
yeah, so that was the situation. And I called my sister and I was like, I can't live like this anymore. Like I was single and I was paycheck to paycheck, but like I did still have a job. I did still have an apartment. I did have a car and a legal driver's license with insurance. So really things were not terrible, although they felt terrible.
Mhm.
And I called my sister who was on the East Coast, and she's a drug and alcohol counselor now, and I like to take full credit for her profession. Um,
Of course you do.
right, of course, it's all about me. And I called her, and I was, bawling, whatever. And she was like, "Well, why don't you call the carpool lady?" And I was like, "Yeah, no." She's probably gonna take me one of those like creepy meetings that she talks about.
Mhm.
I'm not into that, right? And she was like, "Well, I hate to ruin it for you, but you're kind of running out of ideas here." She's like, "Well, what about a helpline, like a 800 number?" I was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I'll try that first." So I tried that, and whoever answered the phone that day, they told me to dump out all my alcohol. And I was like, "Are you
Bastard.
insane? Like, I will give this to a friend. That is so wasteful, right?" Now,
Right.
keep in mind, at the time, you guys, I didn't even recycle, so it's not like I was miss sustainability, right? But
Mhm.
I was like, I can't dump out the alcohol. Are you crazy? So I called my sister back. I was like, yeah, that didn't work. She was just like, well, I don't think we're going to fix this today, Alysse, And I was like, ugh. So ended up calling the carpool gal, and she took me to a 12-step meeting at a
Mhm.
club. And I hated it. Oh my God, I
Yep.
hated it so much. I went in, and the only thing I saw and heard was everything that I was different from and nothing that was the same.
Right.
That
Sure.
is the lens that I look through. And I looked ragged, you guys. I was wearing a very beat up, juicy couture terry cloth jumpsuit that was quite the look back in the mid 2000s. And the bedazzles on the butt, but half of them were gone. It was rough riding. It was not a good look. And but I hated it, and I was like, check that off, like, nope, that didn't work, thank you, next. And so that sent me on a course to a lot of different therapists, which then led to going to a couple of treatment centers and going through their kind of intake process. And every single one that I went to kept coming back saying, yeah, we think you need treatment, we think you need 28 days.
Mhm.
And I was like, I'm not Sandra Bullock. I'm not 28 days. Like, that's not, no. Like, I'm a single mom. I can't be gone for 28 days. Are you insane? Um And so finally I ended up at a place where that particular day at that particular intake, I didn't lie. I don't know. I don't know what came over me, but I did not lie. And I told the truth as I perceived it to be in that moment. And the woman, of course, said that I definitely should do inpatient. And I was like, yeah, everyone keeps telling me that, but I can't do it. I'm not doing it. There has to be another way. And she was like, well, we do have an outpatient program, but usually people go through it after they've been an inpatient. And I was like, okay, but is that like a requirement? Is that the law? And she was like, it's not. And I was like, well, I think, like, what does that look like? And she's like, well, it's 3 days a week. It's in the evenings. I was like, okay, so I could work all day and then I could do that at night. And if we wait until the summer, my kid will be in, it'll be summer break. He can go stay with my parents during the week. And then I can see him on the weekends. Like, I can make all this work. I'm going to project manage all of this. Right. And she looked at me and she was like, yeah, okay. Okay. She's like, so what are you going to do between now and then to stay sober? Cause like we were like a month and a half out from summer break. And I was like, well, I don't know. And she's like, have you tried a 12-step meeting? Oh, yes, I've tried one. No, thank you. Not for me. No, thanks. I don't identify with anyone there. And she was like, okay. Can you control your drinking? And I was like, well, I don't know. I don't think I've really ever tried. Like, that's an interesting idea. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. It'll be fine. I'm gonna do that. She's like, okay, well, that is likely not gonna work. So maybe I'm just gonna put this out here, but at this facility, we have a meeting on Tuesday nights. It's all women, and it's for the ladies who are inpatient, which, by the way, we still recommend that you do. But we also, women that have gone through the class, people from the outside can come in. It's open for people to come in. So if you find yourself on a Tuesday and you want to come here, the door would be open for you. You would be welcome. And I was like, noted. Thank you. Not interested, but noted. I'll go work on the controlled thing. Right. So a couple weeks of trying to control, which I hate to break it to you, but like it didn't work out so great for me.
I'm shocked.
Shocking. I know. Shocking. There were some days I could control it. And by control it, meaning I was somehow able to abstain, or maybe I only had that magical 2, because I had figured out like if that third drink was the one that really put me over the edge. So if I just had the 2, it should be okay. The problem with that is like define 2, like how large is the glass, right? Because like the glasses just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right? And so yeah, the control thing that didn't work. That didn't work. So I found myself at that meeting on a Tuesday night. It actually happened to be May 2nd of 2006. And I didn't make eye contact with anyone. I sat as close to the door for an escape route as possible. I just kind of looked down at my phone and my feet. And I just remember thinking, I've never felt so broken in my entire life. And I just sat there. And for whatever reason that night, every single person that shared in that group, everything that they said had happened to me or I had also done. And it was in that moment that for the first time in all seriousness, I was like, oh, I'm definitely an alcoholic. And I had said that many times before, but I had said it like, I'm a professional drinker. Like I took pride in being an alcoholic, right? And to be clear, I was never paid to drink. I wish I had been paid to drink, but that was never the case. Also, if I had known that my last drink, you guys, was going to be my last drink, I would have done a way better job. My last drink was on a Sunday afternoon, and the only thing left in my house was a warm bottle of champagne or wine. I don't even remember now. But it was mostly full with gumballs that my son had dropped inside of it to keep me from drinking any more of it the night before. Like, does it get more depressing than that? I think it does, but that's pretty low. And so I would have done a lot better job if I had known that was going to be my last drink. I had no idea. But in that room in that moment, I knew I was done. And I didn't know what that meant, but I knew I was done. And so as soon as it was over, I ran out of the room. I ran across the parking lot. I didn't put my chair away. I didn't talk to, I just ran like Forrest Gump, just running, and I got in my car and I was driving home, chain smoking, and I was so mad at God. I've never had a problem with the concept of God. Like I said, I grew up in a religious home, both my grandfathers being pastors. I was raised in the church. So the God concept, not hard for me to wrap my brain around, but I was pissed off at God. And so I'm driving, excuse me, hiccups. I'm driving up the road. I'm mad, and I just start yelling at God, just yelling, just like, what the fuck, dude? Like, seriously? Like, I'm single, I'm chubby, I am paycheck to paycheck. I've got this kid I'm raising all by myself, and now you want to take away my vodka? Like, what? And I'm just angry. I was so angry. And I was like, in that moment, I was like, you know what? Mother lover in the sky, if this is really it, I really have to give this up. If you're really saying this can no longer be my life, then give me one more sign. Give me one more sign, because I don't believe you. And in that moment, as I'm demanding a sign from the universe, this ding goes off in my car. And I look down into the dash and it says, perform service. Yeah, that's funny. I did not realize how much airtime that this story was going to get me, to be clear. I did not realize how funny the perform service thing would be. I did not. This is my story, and until I relapsed, the one I got, and I was so overwhelmed because I was literally demanding a sign from God, and literally I got one in my dash, perform service, and I had to pull over to the side of the freeway, and I just sat there weeping and laughing because thankfully my God has a sense of humor. And because he was like, bitch, please, boom, like there's the sign, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm laughing and I'm like, okay, you win. I am officially out of the ideas. I am out. I have nothing left. You win. What next? Like, I don't know what's next. And as I was sitting there and I looked back into the dash, and I saw that perform service had gone away, and then it showed my gas tank, and I had a little bit less than a quarter tank of gas. And what I heard in that moment, as if God or somebody was sitting in my passenger seat, I heard, you can do this now. If you don't, the next opportunity you have, you will be on empty. And I didn't know what that was going to look like, but I couldn't imagine feeling or looking or being more empty than I was in that moment. Like, I was scared, like, if it could actually get worse than this, I can't. And so by the grace of God, I have not had a drink since that night, but it's most certainly not because I haven't wanted to. Like, come on. I want to, like, not all the time anymore, but it still happens, right? And
Sure,
so
of course.
I threw myself, I did check into the outpatient treatment. I did it for 3 months. I started doing 12-step. I got a sponsor. I got a big book. I put a cover on it because that's what the serious program recovery people do. They put covers on their books. I got the keychain and the necklace, and I tried to be a coffee maker. And then they were like, you're not good at this job. We're going to make you a greeter. So then I was a greeter. And I got a therapist. I went to Barnes and Noble, and this is back in 2006. So the self-help section was super teeny tiny, right? And I just grabbed every possible self-help drinking book that I could. And I was just like, I'm gonna do this thing. And I did it poorly for several years. I managed to not drink or use. But I learned how to fake being sober. And so I looked the part, again, the book and the book cover and the keychain. Like, I looked the part, and I learned the buzzwords, and I did those things. And I had, my life got a little bit better. My career took off. I had a little bit more money because I wasn't like blowing it completely on drugs and alcohol, but I was still in a major my shopping addiction took like a front row seat. So where I ended up was 3 or 4 years sober. And on the outside, my life looked pretty shiny. I was an account executive at a fancy magazine in Seattle, and I was traveling to Hawaii and Palm Springs and New York for work and dealing with luxury advertisers and kind of living the dream. And I think I was actually sponsoring a couple women. I had a home group. You know, I was doing all the things that on paper, on a if we had sober resumes, I was doing all the things that we're supposed to do, but I wasn't doing them honestly, you guys. I wasn't. And
Right.
my behaviors were still the same. I was still lying, cheating. I was definitely still sleeping around a lot. I was still stealing from Target. I used to like to my trick was putting stuff on the bottom of the cart, and if the checker didn't see it, well, that's just their fault for not being a good employee, right? That's not my fault. That's not my fault. So I had real shifty behavior. And so at about 3 or 4 years sober, I didn't want to drink. I didn't want to use. I have sat in so many meetings and heard so many stories that I know exactly what's going to happen if I do that. I know that my addict, my alcoholic is out in a parking lot somewhere doing push-ups. I hope she's wearing a great outfit while she's doing it. But I didn't want to live. Right. So and I didn't want to live before I got sober too. I've always dealt with kind of suicidal depression tendencies, but this was like a real bottom in sobriety, which is what we call a dry drunk. I just didn't want to live. And like one day was, we have a lot of ferries up here in the Pacific Northwest. It's how we get around. And I had missed my ferry. And so I was the very front of line, first car in line for the next ferry coming back to the city. And I was sitting there, I had just gotten done with a sales call. It went great, landed a huge deal. And I just wanted to die. I just wanted to die. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to drive. I'm going to drive onto the ferry, and then I'm going to keep going. I'm going to like Thelma and Louise right off the other side. And and I actually was afraid that I was going to do it and I was not going to be able to stop myself. And I called someone because that was the one thing I had learned to do right is when you need help, call someone, because we don't do this alone. So I called someone and she stayed on the phone with me. And I got onto the ferry and did not drive off on the other side. And when I got back to dry land on the other side, on the mainland, I drove straight to an ER and walked in and was like, I'm not well. I need help. And so I ended up having to do some extra things. I ended up getting a new therapist and getting on some medications. But I also realized I was faking the recovery life. I was faking the 12-step life. I was not doing it. And it was like, okay, you either need to shit or get off the pot. And so I had, I don't know how many sponsors I had by that point, 4, 5, I don't know. I lost track. But all the ones I had up until that point, God bless each and every one of them. They were great. And for taking me on for the times that they did, but I wasn't honest with them. And I don't know if you guys have picked up on this, but I'm a little bit of a strong personality. And so I needed somebody stronger than me to push back, because if not, I was just bulldozing over all the sponsors I had I was just bulldozing right over them. And, you know, I talk people into things for a living, so I'm real good at it. And so I went and found a super scary sponsor, really terrifying. And she took me through the work in a very rigorous and specific way that I had not experienced up until that point. And my life completely changed. How I showed up in my life completely changed. Not as an employee, it definitely changed as an employee. And within a couple of months, I got moved into management. And by the time I was at 5 years sober, I was running the magazine. Like, what? Like, I'm a college dropout. I should not be running anything. And I showed up differently as a friend. I showed up differently as a daughter. I showed up differently as a parent. right? Because I also fell into that trap of my isms. I was not drinking and using, and then I wasn't sleeping around because I started working a program and taking care of myself and finally learning to have some boundaries. But I was still a shopaholic. I was a workaholic, and I was quite honestly, I was a 12-stepaholic. I was just like,
Mm.
and like that wasn't doing anybody any good. But I just had to, I'm the kind of person that just has to learn things the hard way, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
And so, from the 5 year to the 10 year sober mark, it was a lot of great big stuff happened. My career was thriving. I was doing red carpets all over town. I was rubbing elbows with celebrities. I was traveling. It was awesome. And I was happy, because I was working a program and I was being of service to others, and I had made a lot of amends. And I have to tell you guys this one amends story. I went in because I told you that I was a little bit of a shoplifter, a little bit of a klepto.
Mm-hmm.
I went into a Michael's. I don't know if you have Michael's out there, but that's a craft
We
store.
do.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay, you know Michael's. So I went in. This is one of the very first amends that I made, and I had a very, very, very long list of amends to make. But I went into a Michael's and I was like, my name is Alysse and blah, blah, blah. I work this program and I'm doing this thing. And a couple years ago, I took some merchandise and I did not pay for it. And I estimate that merchandise to be about $100. And so I'm here and I would like to pay it back. And the woman just looked at me without even blinking. And she was like, okay, I'll see you over on cash register 3. And I was like, there's a lot of motherfuckers stealing from Michael's. Like, what the hell, you guys? And I got up there and she's like, do you remember what department that the items that you stole were from? And I was like, yep, from the picture frame department, because they're actually still hanging up in my wall in my living room right now. So yeah, I know. So she rung me up and I paid her and she handed me my receipt. And I walked out of Michael's a free woman.
Mm-hmm.
And like, fuck, I don't know how to tell you how magical that feels until you've been there. Like,
Right.
I still at 17 years sober, when I pay all my bills on time every month,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I can automate my payments and I don't, just because I like the feeling of paying what I owe on time. Like, who is that, right? Who is that? And so my life just started looking wildly different. It got really good. My problems got really classy. And then around the 10-year mark, now I was still single. I've been single this whole time. So that problem has yet to be revealed if that one's getting solved. But like, the financial problem was still a little bit of a problem because I was a shopaholic and I was trying to keep up with the sober Joneses, right? And I was living this like glamorous life, even though I didn't have necessarily the glamorous income. So I was trying really hard to look apart, to look like I fit in, right? Because I was so busy comparing my insides to everybody else's outsides. Not a great place to be. So at 10 years sober, I was a complete full-fledged workaholic. And the sponsor I had at that time was like, if you don't get a handle on this, you are going to have a heart attack and die. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm not even 40. Calm down. A month after I turned 40, I had emergency heart surgery and I did almost have a heart attack and die.
Wow.
My left artery, which they is called nicknamed the Widowmaker, was 95% of the way blocked. And it just, I just happened, they got me into surgery in time and put a stent in, and I didn't die, but they don't know how I didn't die. And then shortly that same week, a couple days after that happened, my son, who was 18 at the time, he's 20, how old is he now? 26 now. He was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. And this was right before he was getting ready to go to college. And he had dropped a lot of weight really fast. He's about 6 foot and he was down to 120 pounds. He looked like Skeletor. And so in the span of 5 days, like 2 of us now had lifelong illnesses that we're going to have to deal with. And Then our dog got sick. Then the TV broke. I mean, it was like one thing after another. And then I cracked. My son had surgery. We were in the hospital for like a week. He had a bunch of his insides taken out, which was good. It was what needed to happen, but it was really hard. And then we got home, and a couple days later, our 4-year-old dog at the time, Cooper, freak accident. He choked on one of those squeakers from inside of a dog toy, and he died.
Damn.
And the dog dying was what broke me. It just, you'd think the heart surgery and my kid's surgery would be like, those would be like breaking moments. And they were life changing. Like being rolled into heart surgery and not knowing if you're coming out gives you perspective on life you didn't have before, for sure.
Right.
And watching your kid get rolled into surgery and not sure how he's going to come rolled out, perspective, right? But I was just going through the motions of trying to deal things. The dog dying, it was so final, and I just broke open. And I had about 6 or 8 weeks of vacation time booked up because I was a workaholic. And so I cashed it all in and took like a mini sabbatical. And within 2 weeks, we got a new puppy, Roxy. God bless that bitch. We still have her today. And we went to the Oregon coast, and I was walking down the beach, and I at this point, my relationship with God, my higher power, the boss, whatever you want to call he, she, it, they, them, it was really, really clear. The voice was very clear, just like that day in my car on the side of the freeway. Alysse, you can't go back to that job. If you do, the choice is yours. You have free will. But if you do, it's going to kill you. It's literally going to kill you. And I won't go into all the blah, blah, blah whys, right? It was a tough job for a lot of reasons. And I had lost perspective somehow along the way. And the message was very clear. It was very, very clear. And the one thing I have learned, when the message is clear, you have to pay attention to it. And so at the end of 2015, I walked away from that high powered, fancy, I was the publisher. You guys, that was a big deal. And I walked away, and it was like, my ego was so wrapped up in that job. Right. And what are people going to think? And what am I going to do? And how am I going to make money in the future? And, and I walked away. I walked away from it, and with nothing. I had no job, and my kid had dropped out of college because he's trying to get better. He was slowly recovering, and I was still dealing with my, coming back from the heart surgery and trying to figure that out. And I got in some massive debt. I was about $100,000 in debt with really nothing to show for it, but other than, I don't know, maybe 200 pairs of shoes. And and so it turns out I'm real good at not working. I had no idea, you guys. I was going to a meeting every day, and I was working at nonprofits, and I was doing yoga and meditation. And I was really into the whole self-care thing, but I also knew that I couldn't, as great as that was, and as amazing as that opportunity was to kind of do a reset, it wasn't going to last forever. Right. And, so I ended up getting a job at a TV station. And at first I thought, okay, my son's grown. I could actually leave Seattle and I could go anywhere in the country. And maybe I want to go and work for a big magazine in New York or LA. And I went and had a few interviews. And then I realized that I didn't want to live anywhere else. That Seattle is my home. And so I was like, well, if you're staying here, what are you doing? And so I applied to work at this TV station, and it was in my interview. At this point in my interview, I actually told them I was a person in long-term recovery. And that what that looked like is that sometimes I take a longer lunch because I need to sit in a church basement. And sometimes I can't go to all the drinky happy hour social things because not every day I'm always in the right mind shape for it, headspace for it. But what I did bring to the table is I'm a really good worker, and here's my skill set, blah, blah, blah. I'm very open about my recovery. And if you're not okay with it, this isn't the right place for me to be. And that was the first time I had applied for a job in recovery and been so open about it. Now, at this point, I was still not open. Social media was now in full force, right? I was not coming out about my recovery online anywhere. I was taking taking my anonymity very seriously because I think I thought I could somehow control what people thought about me if I controlled how they knew if I was sober or not. Isn't that cute? Isn't that
Right.
cute that I thought
It
that?
is.
I'm adorable like that. And so, but I really felt empowered. And I got the job, and I did become kind of somebody in the office. There was about 300 people there, and I was there for 6 years, and I became known in the office that if somebody was dealing with alcohol or drug issues, or they had a loved one that was, I became
Mhm.
known as, well, go talk to Alysse. She might be able to
Right.
help you out with some resources, right? And but I would never have been able to do that in early recovery. I wouldn't have had that confidence. So then the workaholism kind of dealt with. I had figured out how to have a work-life balance, and I was at a place, a company that was really insisting that I had a work-life balance, which was great. And I was like, okay, now you've got to deal with this money issue, right? You've got to deal with being the shopaholic. You cannot keep spending like this. You'll have nothing to live off of when you're old. And
So
I
Elise,
was,
Elise,
yeah,
real quick, we're gonna pause here real quick because seeing this, that's
okay.
a not maybe a natural break, but seeing as you got that part of it, maybe this is a good time for us to take a break and split this down the middle. So, Mike, your turn.
All right. Well, stay tuned for more of this story right after this word from our sponsor.
Hey everyone, it's your friends at Sober Not Mature.
Hi
And
there.
yes, it's both of your friends this time. Hi Mike, how are you?
I'm well. How are you, Bill?
I am doing well, but we do have a purpose. We actually usually talk about our one website, but we actually have two websites now. So we
Two?
wanted two websites in one. All right, so everyone knows we still have the podcast website that is www.SoberNotMature.com. And we just launched the store website, so we also have that. Do you know what the website address is on that one, Mike?
Of course I don't.
It's pretty easy, Mike. It's
Yes.
www.SoberNotMatureShop.com.
Ah.
But from the podcast website, you can still hit the store link and get into the web store, or you can
Right.
access it from our Instagram page through the highlights. We've been posting quite a bit about it, and we'll continue to do that. But do you know what's on the second website, Mike?
Well, there's a store. There are products that you can purchase for you and your loved ones.
Well, Mike, do we still have merchandise?
We have merchandise. Well, we got T-shirts and coffee mugs and all kinds of crap.
And one of the coolest parts, we also do have all the recovery books from Hazelden, which is kind of a big deal.
That is
at
a
least-
big deal.
At least for us. So all the books that we read, God Grant Me 24 Hours, the big book, the 12 and 12, all of those books are available for sale on our website. And
They
once
are.
again, that store website is www.sober.
Trying to help, man.
I know you are. You're not helping though. Okay, now I got to say www.SoberNotMatureShop.com.
.com.
.com. Visit that today, or visit the podcast website, which is, again, the podcast website. So
www.SoberNotMature.com.
did you just say sober but not mature?
Yeah, sure. Write that down.
Yeah, like fucking mush mouth or something. All right, everyone, you've suffered enough with this, and we'll get back to what we were talking about previously. So visit the websites, though. All right, everyone, welcome back, and sorry to interrupt you, but yeah, you've got a hell of a long story going here, and I'm like, I need to find a comfortable place to just cut this, and then, because when you said, now I got this taken care of, I'm like, this is a good one. But
Well, and I don't know. Yeah, I'll keep talking. So you just got to jump in, you guys. You just got to jump in.
This is, I mean, it's great. Obviously a great story. I didn't want to interrupt you, so I figured that that was the point when you said, okay, I got this and this taken care of. I'm like, okay, let's take this quick break real quick. So, but no,
Perfect.
go ahead. So yeah, now that the shopaholic thing, because I know for a fact that a lot of people, and Mike and I have talked about that, a lot of people, and you've just detailed it. I mean, a handful of different things as examples of people going into different things that they become addicted to. So now
Mhm.
the shopaholic thing, how did you straighten that out?
Well, I still like nice things. I still like
Mm.
pretty things, right? I do. But it's learning to spend within my means. And so
Right.
I just was like, I have to get out of debt. So I had a goal, I had a 5-year plan. I'm going to get out of debt and I'm going to buy a house. And that became the goal. And I also learned that, like, I had learned a lot of other principles, if you will, that would apply to everything, not just my drinking and
Yeah.
alcohol. Who
Right.
knew?
All of
Who
your
knew?
Imagine
affairs,
Oh
that.
my
all of your
gosh.
affairs.
Who knew? All of your affairs. Um, and so I just got really, I got into enough pain, and then I got really focused about it. And then I set up a budget. Oh, I set up a budget. And I'm saying it with a disdained face, but I set up a budget and I just was really like, I really wanted to experience financial freedom. That became really important to me.
Hmm.
And so, yes, now here I am. I'm sitting at 17 years sober. So the first thing I like to tell people is you can have long-term recovery and do everything wrong. As
Oh
long
yeah.
as you don't drink or drug, right? You can do everything wrong.
Right.
You can make all the mistakes. As long as I don't drink or use today, I can make all the mistakes.
Right.
And I will learn and I will figure it out, and it will be messy. It will be lots of squiggly lines, not just one straight line going upwards, right? And so now at 17 years sober, I am debt free. I bought a house all by myself. I put my big girl pants on and I did it. Now, a year later, after owning the house, I have to tell you, I'm not loving home ownership. Not a fan. I'm not. I don't enjoy the yard work, so I had to get a guy to do that. Right. I don't enjoy when things break that I'm the one responsible for getting them fixed. Not a fan.
Uh-huh.
But I knew that I wanted to buy this property and turn it into a rental and live in it for a couple years, and then turn it into a rental, maybe even a sober living house. I don't know yet. More will be revealed, and this was going to be how I was going to build my own little tiny net worth, and I wouldn't have been able to do it without all the tools that I've had, and so much of it has been freely given to me by my community.
Hmm.
And I don't think that there's only one pathway to recovery, but back in my day, there wasn't a lot of options, and I'm so glad there wasn't a lot of options, because quite honestly,
Hmm.
if there had been as many options back then as there are now, I think I would have sat in pain and agony a lot longer than I did.
Right.
So I'm really happy that my story has turned out the way that it has, one day at a time. But it's still a lot of work, you guys. It's a lot of
Mm.
work to stay sober. And some people are like, well, it's been so long. Isn't it easier now? I'm like, oh, you're cute. That's cute. Yeah, I'll tell you that
Right.
if that's what you want to hear, but that's not the truth. The truth is, a couple weeks back, I had stretched myself too thin because I still have some problem with setting boundaries. I was moving too quickly. I wasn't paying attention, and I was text messaging with a bunch of people and inadvertently talked about somebody behind their back directly to their face.
Nice.
And this is another person in recovery who I adore. I adore this person, and I talked shit about her to her face in third person.
Mm.
It was awful. And but guess what? Instead of just what the old Alysse would have just, even the old early sober Alysse would have just been like, well, I'll just go get a new friend, right? Because that's what
Right.
I did. Like, when shit gets hard, I'll just go get new friends, because I make friends easily. So I'll just go get another one. It's fine. Well, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to keep the relationships that I have because I actually really care about them. I just have learned that I have to clean up my messes when I shit the bed, right?
Hmm.
And
Right.
I have tools on how to do that, and I know how to show up now and look at my part and look at what's underneath my part and how it got to where it got to, and own that, and not apologize, but own what I did, and then talk about what I'm going to do differently going forward.
Hmm.
And there's so much grace and healing that comes from that. And like, I still get uncomfortable, shit still goes sideways, but I now have the choice on how long I want to sit in my shit sandwich. And you
Right.
guys, I can't handle being uncomfortable very long anymore. Like, I'm a wimp
Right.
now. I used to be tough. I am not. I can cry on demand almost. And I can't be uncomfortable for very long anymore. But my favorite thing outside of cleaning up, being sober and finding a pathway that gives you tools on how to clean up the wreckage of your past, huge. Love it. Big fan. But my favorite, the secret sauce to me in recovery is giving it away and
Oh,
helping
yeah.
other people, find it, right?
Right.
That for me, hands down, has been the best thing. Best, cannot put money on it, cannot get enough likes on Instagram or Facebook about it. I love helping other people in whatever way I'm supposed to, whatever way I have a unique contribution into their life, helping them get better in whatever way that looks for them. And so I am super duper active in my service work. I mean, in part, the Sober Curator is just one big bundle of service work. We don't pay anyone to participate. We don't pay anyone to read it. I don't take any advertising money for it because I don't want treatment center ads. It's just one big labor of love. I'm not saying it'll always be that way. Eventually I would love it if it became self-supporting, but right now it is what it is. I sponsor women. I work with a ton of local nonprofit, recovery-based nonprofits in the greater Seattle area that do a lot of advocacy work, including at the state level. When I launched the Sober Curator in the middle of the pandemic back in August of 2020 and came out of my sober closet, if you will, I was nervous about it. And now I don't care. I don't give two shits who knows if I'm sober. Like, I'll wear that shit on a shirt. I'll put it on a hat. Like, I don't care. Because if I make a difference to one person, that's all I care about. If I am just one little part of somebody's story to help them get to maybe, any piece of freedom that I've gotten, I'm all about it. I just have to let people know that I do it really imperfectly and it's kind of messy and I make a lot of mistakes. But if you can squint your eyes and see that my heart is now in the right place, like, that is what I'm all about, is being of service to other people.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, and I think that's an important part of it too, showing, the attraction rather than promotion, but showing people that, yeah, you can fuck up and still do this thing. That's really important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because we get. I remember the first time I tried to get sober. I was about 30 years old, and I remember them telling me, you have to change everything but your name. What they didn't tell me is I had the rest of my life to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I said, well, shit, I can't change everything but my name right now, so fuck it, and went back out for 10 more years. But yeah, this time I learned that I was taught that, no, yes, you do have to change everything, but guess what? It's really slow and it's going to take forever, and that's okay. And you're going to fuck up along the way, and that's okay too. But like you said, as long as you don't pick up, you got a chance. You got a shot at doing this thing. And yeah, thankfully we don't have to do this perfectly, because I know I fuck up every day too, but I'm still working at it.
Well, and that's one of the things that the beauty of and he and I, both Mike and I, got sober in Cleveland. He's still in Cleveland. I'm not. I moved away from there 3 years and a couple of months sober at the time, or a few months sober. But the people, the structure, the meetings, everyone and everything that we went through out there, and still to this day, our opinion, maybe we're selfish with it because we were there, but there is nothing like Cleveland AA. I mean, it's great. It's so close to just the heart of the whole thing in Akron. The people they're not mean to you, but they don't take any shit. They're very they care about you, and they care about you completely. But they and I kind of laughed when you said bulldozing.
They care about you enough to piss you off,
right? But
Yeah.
I mean, when you were talking about bulldozing people, I'm like, that never fucking work out there, because I'm a hell of a lot better than I used to be, but I'm still an egotist. I'm everything you were talking about, talking and doing this, and everyone just nobody wanted to hear my game, and I had a lot of it coming in, and I can still have it. And one of the funniest things, Mike and I were at a meeting, and we were probably 2 years sober, maybe a year and a half, whatever it was, and we're at this meeting and we're standing outside. It was who do you know, Mike? And we're standing out there talking to some people, and this one dude walks up. God only knows who it was, and he's like, "Oh, how you doing?" I'm like, "Ah, I can't complain." And Mike's like, "Ah." He's like, "That's all you fucking do is complain." And I'm like, "Shit, man." And I'm like, "Okay, so to this day, if somebody asks me how I'm doing, I just say I'm doing well. Because if you say I'm doing great, they're like, "Oh, what's going on?" If you say, things are good," they're like, "Oh, what's wrong?" And I sure as shit, I'm not going to say I can't complain because that's a bunch of fucking bullshit. But I can say I'm well because that translates into I'm well as I can be at this moment, which is all that I can ask for. But um, again, everything you were talking about is just all of that stuff, and we haven't done. And Mike and I can kind of speak for each other in a lot of ways because we've been through all of this stuff. He knows everything about me and vice versa, but neither one of us have done any of this shit perfectly. But the thing of it is we have this daily routine and the structure, and we've said it a number of times on here that people may look at us and think that, oh, you guys got this, man, which I hate that term, but everything looks cool,
You don't.
but I mean, my explanation to that is, you see a duck on the water, the fucking feet are going crazy, but you can't see them. We're still doing the work every day, but the only reason it looks easy, quote unquote, is because it's a lot of it's habit, but we're committed to doing it every day, So it's we I don't want to say we've honed our craft, but at least we know where to go, how to show up, what to do if we have a problem, all the things you had talked about, which is it's just the beauty of this whole thing. And Mike was kind of laughing. I got to jump in on the social media part because I know he was laughing at me because I just literally it's a month and a half now that I opened up. And the reasons behind that is that, again, a lot of the things that you had said, where I really wasn't trying to control people, but I was concerned about my image, and I was 100% concerned about what people would think about me. And I did feel like it could have affected my career or job opportunities. Now, whether that was right, wrong, or indifferent, I was never embarrassed about it, but I was very, very strict about not opening up on that stuff. What opened it up was me. I started to listen to recovery podcasts a year ago, a year and a half ago, November. So not this past November, but the one before. And then that's when Mike and I over Thanksgiving were talking about. I'm telling him all this shit on these podcasts. I'm like, fuck it, man, we can do that. We can talk shit into a microphone. And so
Damn right.
we did, and our only purpose was I never used my first and last name. I still don't use my last name on the podcast, but now it's open on coaching site. It's on LinkedIn. People can easily find me. It's fine. But we talked about that a lot, but then we start telling all these stories, and I'm like, I don't want to do what I'm doing anymore at the other, in my quote unquote career. And I knew that. So as soon as I dumped that on, the middle of June, basically, I'm like, fuck it. And the funniest part was, and I talked to Mike about this and I talked to my sister about it. I'm like, I don't know what to do. Should I do this whole big post? And then I said, no, fuck it. I'm just going to start posting as if everyone knows. And I did. And I'm like, nobody's going to fucking say anything because people are a bunch of fucking pussies these days. Nobody can say anything. Nobody's going to come up to me and be like, oh, you were sober? We didn't know that. Nobody's going to ask me questions because people are afraid to ask even honest, open questions. Not one person, not one. No, nobody I've worked with because I'm out on LinkedIn. Nobody I've on Facebook. All these friends and all stuff. Nobody said, "Damn, I didn't know you were sober." No one. so I'm like, fuck it, And now this is just who I am, and it's kind of cool,
Yeah, and in my experience, the longer that you're out there like that, like the text messages, the emails, the DMs will come.
Sure.
Where somebody's like, hey, so you're pretty open about this, and I know someone, or I am, or my brother, or my sister, or my aunt, or my mom, or whatever. Like that happens not all the time, but like regularly enough that it doesn't surprise me anymore.
Right.
And I just I like being honest about it. But it's still, I also like, here's the thing, the stigma is still alive and well in 2023. Right.
Sure.
I can tell you that, so before I left the TV station, I left there about a little over a year ago. And cool, super cool. The guy I work for now is 29 years sober. It's super cool to have a sober boss. I had no idea how cool that was going to be. But before I left corporate America, I was on a sales manager team celebration dinner. We were celebrating that we'd hit our goals for the Olympics and the Super Bowl, so kind of a big deal. And we were at this fancy restaurant, and I knew I was the only non-drinker in the group. I had no problem with that, right? And everybody knew that I'm the non-drinker. It's not a big deal. And I knew they were all going to be drinking. Again, not a big deal. Don't care. I went in prepared. I had a plan. I had an exit strategy. All those things. And the waiter came around and was like, what can I get you to drink? And I was like, I don't drink. Do you have anything? And he's like, yeah, actually, we have this whole mocktail menu now, and here's all these options. And I was like, awesome. Just I don't care what you put in front of me. Just keep it coming as long as there's not alcohol in it. Just keep glasses in front of me that are booze free. And because I knew that there was going to be lots of cheering and celebrations and toasts and all that shit, right? And so sure enough, we got to the first speech of the night where, I knew there was going to be 1,000 toasts. And we're going to toast, and the toast is made, and everybody goes to cheers, and I cheers to my left, and I go to cheers the guy on my right, and I miss his glass. His glass mysteriously moves in a different direction. And I was like, wow, what a klutz I am. So got to get that right on the next one. So then the next cheer comes around, the next toast comes around relatively quickly. And here we are, we're cheersing again. I go to the left and go to the right. I miss that guy's glass again. And it turns out that I wasn't missing his glass. He was pulling his glass away from me because he believes that toasting me, someone who doesn't have alcohol in their glass, is bad luck for him. And I was like, oh my God, I'm the black cat at the table. Who knew? Right. And so I was like, wow. Yeah. Stigma, alive and well. Right. So I always respect when people don't want to come out about it. I think it's a very, very personal choice, and I would never talk about somebody else's recovery.
Right.
Unless they were so out about their recovery that it was common knowledge already, right? At that, I can't say, so if I'm referring to a celebrity who has been, let's say Matthew Perry or Robert Downey Jr., they're, we know that they're sober.
Right.
So that's one thing, but people that are not out, it's not my job to put them out. So I have total respect for the people that don't want to come out, but I also have total respect for the people that do. Now, who I do have a problem with, I'm real, I have a lot of opinions. I do struggle with the people in early recovery that have 30 seconds sober and somehow have gotten 50,000 followers on Instagram. And at 30 days sober, they're somehow a sober coach. Right. I have a real opinion about that because from my own experience, I didn't know who I was at 1 year sober. You heard me. I didn't know who I was at 3 or 4 years sober. It takes time. It takes a lot of time. So when I see people in really early recovery coming out and becoming sober coaches and life coaches and doing all this stuff on, I think it's great on one hand because I think they really believe they're making a difference and they're trying to help people. But I get nervous because there's so much that I know they probably still have to learn because there was so much for me. So I get nervous, but it's not my side of the street. So I got to just steer clear. Right. I get super nervous because, there's some people that think that a slip, not a big deal. For me, it's life or death. Right. For me, it's life or death. So, so a slip would be a really big deal, but there's other people that don't think a slip is a big deal. And then there's the people that slip all the time, but still count time. I don't know. It's wild, wild west out there in recovery land. I got to be honest with you. It is. And I do believe that the tide rises all boats, but I also think we have a responsibility because there is a difference between someone who is sober curious and somebody who is about to lose their life because their liver is shot, right? There's a difference. And so I get nervous at how muddied the waters are becoming, but then I'm just I got a God that's big enough for all of it, so it's okay. And I'm not going to be the one that's out there saving everybody. That's also okay. And nor do I want to be because I can't handle that kind of responsibility. I can barely take care of myself, but I get super nervous, you guys, when I see all of that. So it's on one hand, I think it's super cool what's happening in the online community with with all the podcasts and the books and the Instagram and social media accounts and Clubhouse and like here for all of it. I've been on all of it. I've done all of it, but I'd be lying if I didn't say it didn't make me nervous. And quite honestly, people with long-term recovery make me nervous too.
Right.
There's a bunch of people with like 30 years that are assholes, right? Like,
Absolutely.
I mean, let's be clear. I was an asshole a couple weeks ago. So like, it all makes me nervous, but I'm just trying to like trust God and keep my side of the house clean.
Right. Yeah. And quite frankly, if I don't want what they have, then I'm not going to do what they do.
Right.
If I want what they have,
Yeah.
I'm going to do what they do. Right.
Yeah.
You got 30 days sober and you want to run the world, you go right ahead, man. I'm going to sit over here with my little 13 years and I'm going to do what I do. And it's all good. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, if you're getting the word out that this is not, to smash that stigma in whatever way it's being smashed, I'm cool with that. But I also know that there's a path. It's a very wide path, but it's a path. It's definitely there. And I'm going to walk on that path. And, the people that walked before me and made that path, I'm going to do what they do. Yeah. And I'm not going to worry about the rest of that shit.
I know. And I get, I get very protective of 12-step because it gets a lot of bad raps. People, it doesn't work. And you're like, yeah, of course it doesn't work for the people that don't do it. It definitely doesn't work.
Yep.
You can't sit in a garage and become a car. Like, calm down. Right. Like, but like I've never met somebody who didn't work it thoroughly and honestly that it didn't work for. I just haven't met that person. I'm not saying they don't exist. I just haven't met them. And it didn't work for me for a long. It worked for me even when I didn't think it was working for me. It just worked a lot better when I stopped faking it and when I actually started doing it. And what I have learned is it doesn't matter what you say. Doesn't matter what you say. It does matter how you make people feel for sure. But it only matters. It only matters what you do. Your actions show who you really are, not your words, your actions. So what am I really doing today for my recovery versus what am I talking about? If I'm talking, then especially if the voice is loud, then it's probably just me and my ego and my bullshit. But it's in the whispers. It's in the whispers and my actions that I know that I'm in alignment with the big boss upstairs.
Right. Well, it's my thoughts are still all fucked up. I understand that. They always will be. But again, yes, my actions. I brought it up with Dr. Sarah. I said, look, our sponsor told us a long time ago, AA is the exact opposite of psychiatry and psychology. Psychiatrists and psychologists want to change the way we think, so we act differently. AA wants to change the way we act, so we think differently.
Yeah.
And yeah, absolutely. Yep. So I act differently. And yes, slowly my thoughts are much better than they were 13 years ago, 14 years ago. Right. But my thoughts are still fucked up. My first thought is always wrong.
Always.
And it always will be.
Always.
And I'm okay with that. I understand that today. My thoughts are fucked up. But my actions aren't today. And that's all that matters. That's all that matters. I can't beat myself up over my thoughts because I don't have any control over them. I don't. I have control over my actions.
So at least
yes, and one of my favorite sayings is we have to act our way into a new way of thinking, not think our way into a new way of acting.
Right.
Same thing.
Yep.
It's the same thing, right? It's the same thing.
But you had, speaking of actions, you had talked about, and I made a note of it, that thinking about drinking, and this is something that Mike and I talk about a lot, because and it was Mike, one of our very early episodes, we brought it up and, we're kind of like, God, could this be true? And then Mike's finally like, he says, they're full of shit. So he's like, if there's somebody that's, been sober for any amount of time and says they never think about either drinking or thinking about alcohol, it's impossible because to Mike's point,
they're lying.
Yeah. He and I was 41, he was 43. So for the time that we started drinking, even take 30 years apiece or whatever it was, and, in a 30 year, I mean, 3/4 of our lives, God, I'd have to do math. Yeah. 3/4 of our lives, we were drinking, actively drinking. And then now all of a sudden we don't think about it, which is again, bullshit. But the thing of it is, and I just went, well, Alysse, I was supposed to have a meeting with Alysse last Friday night. because we were going to talk about the search engine optimization for our websites and stuff like that. Because
Right.
she said a couple of things, and basically I'm like, okay, she's a nerd. Maybe she can help me with this, you know?
I'm definitely a nerd. Definitely a
Well,
nerd.
because she said, she's like, he's done all this stuff. I'm like, do you do any of this stuff? But so my car breaks down at 3:30 in the afternoon. I texted you like right away, and I'm like, okay, so here's my deal, but everything should be fine. 2 hours later, I'm like, I still got an hour and a half. Half hour later, I'm like, can we push it an hour? And then I'm like, fuck it, I can't even get a goddamn ride. So all said and done with that. So Alysse, I was on kind of on a vacation, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing that I thought about, and this is to let anyone know out here. 13 years, both Mike and I have been sober. 13 years in April, so 13 years and 4 months, right? So my first thought is I'm sitting there, and I grabbed like 4 slices of pizza from a fucking gas station so I could have my pizza on Friday night. Hopped in this Uber finally after 2 hours, and I get back and I'm sitting there and I'm just wiped out, and I still had to put our episode together, but I'm thinking, fuck, man, if I was still drinking, because the first thing I looked, I knew they had coffee. So that was the first thing. So I'm like, I got my coffee in the morning, but I'm like, if I was drinking still, I would have been fucked. So even if I would have brought some booze with me, and then knowing I was going to be without my car, which would have been Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. My kids were there on Saturday and Sunday. We went to the grocery store. There's no fucking way I could have had, went with my son to the grocery store and bought enough booze to get me through for, 4 days. So, I mean, I immediately thought about that. What the fuck would I have done, No, I didn't want to drink. I wasn't thinking about going to get booze, but it was still after 13 plus years. I'm like, how would I have coordinated that? And it doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah, you did run the thoughts, right? You do run the plan out still. Well, shit. Yeah. Okay, so I got 4 days. I can't get to the store, so I got to do this. I got to do this. Right? Yeah, it's just the way our minds work, and they always will.
Yeah, and there's no and from this place. So because at one point when I'm trying to get Beaver Dam, Wisconsin is not a huge town. I'm very familiar with it. Very familiar.
Beaver.
Yeah, Beaver. Yeah, I used that as a joke. I said, on our podcast, I said I was going to be knee deep in Beaver. But
damn.
I know. Well, you remember that, Mike, because you said it's better than being neck deep.
Right.
But so it's on the other side of the lake. And at one point, I was just going to walk because I'm like checking how long it would take me to walk. It would have taken me literally like 2.5 hours to walk this. And I'm like, so there's no walking to a gas station. There's no doing none of this, Again, like you said, Mike, I still work through the plan, which kind of it didn't surprise me, but I'm like, I got to bring this up on the podcast. I want to talk about this. I'm just like, ooh, this would be great conversation. It wasn't something I'm like, fuck, why am I still thinking about this 13 years later? Because I do, but it was crazy, just some of those thoughts because, again, it could be a smell, it could be an atmosphere, it could be a place, it could be a person, whatever it is. Those thoughts cross our minds, and we talked about it all the time. But it's the actions. Mike said it perfectly. He always says that his thoughts are still all kind of fucked up, but his actions aren't. Then he does different actions. So just because a thought goes into my head, and people talk about slips, that made me nervous when you were talking about slips, because there's no such thing as a slip in my mind. If I drink, I'm gonna die. And that's me playing a tape through. One drink, one slip, I'm dead, because that's I'm gonna drink until I die. Then that's it.
I can remember there was a woman working for me, and she was sober for several years. And then she came in one day and said, I just want to let you know, I've decided, I think probably that was just a fluke, and that I'm not actually an alcoholic. So I've made the decision to start drinking again. No disrespect for you. That's why I wanted you to hear it from me. But I've thought a lot about this decision, and this is the decision I've come to. And I remember thinking, oh, this is not going to end well,
right?
Because I knew intimate parts of her drinking career, right? And but all I could say was, okay, thanks for letting me know, right? And so for about the next 3 to 6 months, I thought it looked like, from the outside looking in, what I saw with my own eyes at events and what I saw on social media, that drinking was working for her, that she had somehow maybe figured it out, like everything was okay, right? And I just got, not only did I get resentful, I definitely got resentful. But I was like, well, maybe. Well, I mean, I heard her story. Like, she was really bad off, and now she seems to be totally fine. So maybe I would be totally fine. I mean, I'm so much more mature now, you know? Okay, I'm definitely not more mature.
Right.
And it really did a number on my head. I spent a lot of time thinking about if she was or wasn't okay, and that meant that I would or wouldn't be okay, right? And like, for what? Like, why would I risk it now? But the thoughts are still there. I can't control the thoughts. I cannot control the thoughts. I can acknowledge them and say, hello, thoughts. Please go on your way. Or I can pick up the phone and talk to someone about them, pray them away, whatever it is I need to do. But the thoughts, they still happen. I don't know that they're ever going to be turned off. So I'm glad you guys talk about that, because that's not, I mean, if the thoughts weren't there, then I wouldn't be on a podcast talking about my drinking life and my recovery life for so long.
Right. And you know, you talked about that first meeting you went into, and you compared yourself right out of the room.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of friends that I know. One of them Bill knows real well too, who, you know, went through this thing with us and all that, and went back to having some beers in the evening and living their life. And you know what? I can't compare myself to them either. You know, I can't, because I'm not that person. I fully convinced that I cannot drink like that anymore. I can't drink. You know, well, I can drink real well. I can drink myself right into the grave. And you know, but the problem is that big lie that we tell ourselves, I'm not hurting anybody but myself. I know that's a lie. It's a lie. You know, if I pick up a drink, yeah, maybe, you know, I might keep my job. I might keep my house. I might be able to fucking drink myself into the grave, and it'll be okay. You know, I'll just cut my life short by, you know, 10 years. Fine. You know, but I'm going to hurt other people if I do that. And I can't do that. See, it's not all about me anymore. This program has taught me that my actions, as small as they are, and whatever, not that I'm the center of the fucking universe or anything anymore, but my actions do affect other people. And thankfully, I have the choice today. I have the freedom today to make that choice. Am I going to affect them negatively or positively? And I'm going to affect them positively every chance I can. And by doing that, I don't need to pick up a drink today. I don't need to get high today, because I'm kind of all right. I'm not hurting people today. So I don't have that shame and that guilt that I have to fucking cover up anymore. And as long as I don't, you know, I do have the physical allergy. So as long as I don't put it in me the first time, I don't have to activate that. And that's not a worry anymore. You know, now it's the shame and the guilt that's going to drive me back to it. And if I don't have the shame and the guilt because I'm not fucking hurting people today, then I don't have to worry about any of it. It's pretty goddamn nice.
You know, when there was
and I love being not hungover.
Oh God, yeah.
Like you guys. Like, and also people are always like, you look so young. And I'm like, well, it's because I don't do drugs or alcohol. I don't know what else to tell you, but that's the secret sauce. Like, just don't drink. What were you going to say, Bill?
No, there was because you were mentioning about, like you said, you were glad that we talked about, you know, that sort of thing, that, you know, thinking about drinking. And, you know, we've had a few people along the way tell us, they're like, yeah, nobody talks about this or nobody talks about that. You guys do this. And you know what? Sometimes part of it's kind of cool. It's like, okay, so yes, what we're saying is kind of hitting with people, but then the other part of it is, why aren't people talking about some of these things? And we're not doing this to be like, oh, edgy, and we're the ones talking about it. No one is. We fuck around about it, you know, or fuck around with the whole thing. But I've listened to podcasts where they say that, okay, so we don't want to cast an opinion here. We're not gonna, you know, throw out any advice or really give our opinions. And I'm like, well, why the fuck are you talking to us? Okay. So here's the thing. Even if we're giving shitty opinions, okay, turn the fucking thing off, you know? But if our opinion is that people are fucking lying, you know, if they don't think about it, but we're going to validate it. But 9 times out of 10, we're just talking about ourselves. You know, this is what it is. This is what it is. We don't understand how another person can do that or blah, blah, blah. And it's not about, again, it's not about trying to figure out, well, we're going to talk about it when no one else is. But Mike and I, I've talked about this all the time. We couldn't imagine being on here and not having an opinion. what the there'd be no fucking point. No fucking point. That's the whole point, is that we have opinions. We're going through it,
I have an
Yeah.
opinion. I'm going to share it
Right.
with
And
you,
you don't have,
whether you like it
yeah,
or
and
not.
you don't have to take it, and the same thing when,
Well, you're not saying your opinions are facts.
right.
You're saying it's your
No.
opinion, right?
It's my opinion. Right.
Yeah.
Tell me I'm full of shit and tell me why I'm full of shit. Maybe
Yeah.
I'll change my opinion.
Yeah.
I doubt it, but I might.
we actually don't really even give advice. We'll say, I guess, my advice or whatever, but we'll make suggestions, because that's what we were taught. The steps, for instance, are suggestions, they're not mandates. Anything we say on here is not a mandate. Nobody has to listen to us, has to listen to anything we say, but we've got 13 years to back up some of these things. We've got all these different stories. You've got 17 years to back up some of these things. My God, listening to Dr. Sarah with almost 40 years, I
know, she's
my
hilarious.
ears were wide open listening to her, because, well, there's a reason for her.
Mhm.
And all these dudes that we know in Cleveland with 10 and 15 and 20 and 30, and one dude had 50 plus years when he died. He knew Sister Ignatia. So I mean,
Right.
it's mind blowing. But again, that's the whole point of this. It's okay to have opinions. We're not trying to poison people's minds, even though we still might be.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, and I'm sure you guys have seen this and have witnessed this, but the longer you stay sober, there's not a lot of people in long-term recovery. First of all, because
Right.
it's hard.
Sure.
It's
Mhm.
hard. And people go out all the time, right? Because there's no
Right.
destiny here. There's not you don't get to some level and you've made it. You've arrived and
Right.
you're all of a sudden safe, right? Like,
Mhm.
but it's there's so much wisdom there, and time takes time. You
Mhm.
can't buy more time right now, but
Right.
I can say at 17 years sober, I haven't worked a program for 17 years. Definitely not. There were so many chunks of time in all of there that I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing,
Right.
because
Mhm.
I'm still a little bit lazy. And things get good and I slack off on my program. Things get bad and I slack off on my program. But time does matter, because there's growth that just happens with it. And I love getting older, because I'm becoming so much more comfortable in my skin.
Right.
Right.
And I feel like I'm learning so much. And like I said earlier, my problems get classier, but I'm still going to have them.
Mhm.
I am curious, do either one of you have, like, if you're out and somebody offers you a drink or asks you to drink, they're not maybe in the sober community, what's your like go-to line? What's your comeback?
Mike, you go.
when,
You go
when
first,
somebody
Mike.
asks you?
I know. My
Yeah.
favorite one is I'll be in a bar and somebody will say whatever. I'll look over at the bar with the lines of bottles there and I'll say they don't have enough.
I love that one.
And the only
And it usually it shuts them up and I move on. I go get a tonic water with a slice of lime in it, and nobody generally, they don't care, because I'm not that fucking important. Nobody really gives a shit whether I'm drinking or not.
And the only thing I ever say to people, and I've done it for years, is that somebody will say, "Hey, can I grab you a drink?" And I'll say, "Yes, I want this," and I'll tell them, I grab a Diet Coke or whatever it is, or I'll say no, I've got a water, or I've got a soda, or I'll say I'll grab a soda. But I tell people exactly what I want to drink, not yes or no. I never ever come back with I don't drink and this and that. If somebody's like, "Oh, you don't drink," at that point, then I'll say no. I'll answer the question. But if somebody pushes on it, we've talked about this before, I just say it's a health choice. Because if it's somebody that I don't know, I don't feel like wasting my breath on that person, because if they don't know that I'm sober, I don't know them well enough to waste my time, with it, is basically what it comes down to. But I know a lot of people, and especially listening to all these podcasts and posts on Instagram, people struggle with that. I mean, it's a huge fear for a lot of people about being asked that question, and what do I say, and blah blah blah. And we've talked about it on here, and I've actually posted shit about it. I'm just like, just tell them what you want. Don't say anything about it. It's not their business to know. You don't have to share what your deal is.
No. And the people that laser in on it, that focus in on it, it says so much more about them than it does about you. Like, you can always tell the people that are like, they don't even comment. They're like, oh, okay, like whatever. Like, they probably don't have any issues, they can take it or leave it, right? It's the people that are like,
Right.
well, are you okay if I drink this? And I'm like, well, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think it's going to jump out of your glass and into my throat?
Right.
Like, it's, it's not that easy to get into my throat. Okay. Like, it's not that easy. So, yeah, it's so, you got that. So
Anymore.
Anymore, yeah.
yeah, anymore. Thank you for the clarification. But so yeah, like I've had all the comebacks over the years, but I always like hearing how people handle it because,
Yeah.
and depending on the vibe and my mood and all, the sun, the moon, whatever, I could have any half a dozen different responses. But I have learned over the years that it always, if people laser in on it, it means it's more about them than it is about me.
Right.
And
Right.
I just got comfortable with that. And I loved your trick, Bill, of like, just say exactly what you want or keep a drink in your hand, because then it takes the pressure off, right? It takes the pressure off.
Well, and the other thing too is
yeah.
that I don't hang out in bars. I mean, I don't. If I end up in a situation like that, it's been based on a work situation or something like that. I've been to a couple of weddings, but it's been family and stuff like that. I don't put myself in those circumstances, to be asked that question. Very rarely does that happen. But in thinking about it, just right off the top of my head, when that's been asked, it's been in work situations, so where I've been at an event, that I've been asked that question. But shit, other than that, I mean, family stuff, weddings that I've been to, it's all people that know me, and nobody gives a shit. Even the people that know me don't give a shit. So I mean, Mike had said that.
Right.
But so let's do this. So I mean, I know that you mentioned a little bit about the Sober Curator, but kind of as a wrap up, explain again just a brief thing, what it is, where you're located, what your Instagram handle is.
Sure.
I know
Yeah.
that the three of us are going to end up, or maybe you and I, Alysse, are going to talk about what we may be able to do with you guys, because we're all in. We love what you guys are doing, and obviously would love to be a part of it. So again, just kind of briefly explain again what the Sober Curator is.
Yeah, it is an online lifestyle community. We don't offer meetings, to be clear. We don't offer coaching services. We don't offer anything, but really just entertainment. And we post a lot of stuff. We don't. Sometimes we have opinions on some things, but usually it's like, here's the information. Do with it what you will. So we cover everything that you would see in a traditional lifestyle magazine. So that does mean we cover food and drink. Yes. It also means that we cover shopping, and we even have a sober fashion column. Yes, we do. Because some of us loved getting dressed to go out and still love fashion. We just now know what we look like before we leave the house.
And even better,
my
we
God.
know what we look like when we get
We
home.
got home, right? Oh my God. I can remember you guys' trips to Vegas, and this is back before digital cameras even existed, and like taking that roll of film to get developed, and then pulling out the camera and being like, oh my God, we look like that. Yeah, it was yeah.
Yep.
So we also do podcast reviews. We've reviewed yours. We do movies and TV shows. Anytime there's a movie, a TV show, a documentary that has addiction, recovery, mental health as part of a decent chunk of the storyline, I try to get it up into the archives. We do book reviews on self-help and memoirs, but we also have started doing addiction fiction. We have a sober sports column that's coming out soon. We have sober horoscopes. We have sober tarot card reading. We have travel, like sober trips. We're even going to be hosting a Sober Curator retreat in Costa Rica in April of 2024. So we're just really trying to put together a lifestyle hub, not to tell people that they have to get sober, not to tell people how to get sober, but like, so you're sober, now what? Like, here's all the things that you might enjoy because you've chosen to live a sober lifestyle. So that's really what it's about. We also have resources for national resources. And if we have a sober curator close to a large metropolitan city, we've tried to pull in that area's resources. We have a recovery nonprofit resource guide, a lot of shopping and merchandise. We've tried to cover sober business owners of all kinds. We get about 20,000 people to the site a month right now, which is cool. And we just finished up doing our second readership study. And when we did it 2 years ago, about 50 people filled it out. And I was really excited that 50 people had taken the time to answer like 12 or 13 questions. And this go around, you guys, over 30,000 people took our
my
survey.
God, wow.
I can't even believe it.
Nice.
And it's cool because, you know, Google Analytics can tell you all kinds of things about who's coming to your site and what they're reading and where they're coming from and how long and all of that. But they can't tell you how long they've been sober. So I had to ask, how long have you been sober? And got a lot of great feedback on knowing that our audience is largely people that are under 5 years sober. Our sweet spot, I was always thinking I was targeting people that were 10 years or longer because that's who I am. But it turns out we're actually attracting people that are in that 1 to 5 year range.
Nice.
Along with there's a handful of people that are California sober. There's, you know, definitely the Sober Curious. And then it was really cool that I found out that we've got a lot of people coming to the site. They're coming not as a person that identifies that they need to be in recovery, but because they have a friend or a loved one that is, and they're wanting to be able to just talk to them about movies or books or podcasts. So it's super cool. No idea what the future for it holds, but right now you can find us at thesobercurator.com. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Pinterest, and we're on TikTok, but please don't go follow us there because it's not worth it.
Yeah, and we actually we follow you guys on Instagram also. So if I mean, not that it's super hard, but you know, hopefully we've been posting stuff about, you know, obviously this one coming up. And
yeah, we're all about the cross promotion love.
And we'll continue to do that. And like I said, you know, it's still obviously a conversation that we'd like to have because you know, if we could be a part of, if nothing else, can we get made up into those little caricatures? That's what I want.
You want a Funko. I got to tell you guys a story about the Funkos. So Funkos, the bobbleheads, they're so cute. So they're actually headquartered here in the greater Seattle area. And because we've got Sober Curators, mostly in the United States, we've got a couple in Canada and one down in Mexico, but predominantly we're in the United States and we're scattered all over. I knew that, you know, I have yet to have the opportunity to bring everybody together and get pictures together. And I knew everybody's headshots would look a little different with angles and lighting and whatever. So I was like, how can I represent us as a group in a way that looks kind of uniform? And I collect those Funko dolls. And so at the headquarters here, you can actually go to their store, and it's the only place you can make custom ones. You cannot buy them online. I do think that they might also offer it at their Hollywood location. But as far as I know, those are the only 2 locations in the country you can walk into a store and make your own little custom Funko. You can go to their website and make an avatar, like a digital one, but if you want like the real deal, so that's my deal, is I don't pay anyone that contributes to the site because it doesn't make any money, but I consider it service work. But what I do is I bring together a community of people that like creating content for the recovery community. Right. I host a monthly meetup where we talk about collaborations and best practices and trends. We've been talking about AI a lot. And then I make everybody a Funko doll.
Nice. Yeah, I saw that when that was something I saw. I think the first time I popped on your site, I'm like, that's fucking cool. But
plus, I just think I'm trying to put the fun in sobriety. Oh, yeah. Like, I really want to show that being sober is not boring, because I think sober has gotten a bad rap, right? And so I'm just trying to show that we're not all drunkalogs and sad stories. Like, we're actually pretty cool people with big lives.
Well, and the last thing I want to say about your site too is that it's a light read, all of it, and it's a lot. It's fun to be on there. It's nothing that's I don't know. It doesn't seem tedious. It doesn't seem like a news site. It doesn't seem like a typical magazine. And it is. It's a light place to get some sober entertainment, but a hell of a lot of information. So, I mean,
it's like Sober BuzzFeed. BuzzFeed,
that's
maybe.
That's a good way to put it. That's actually a really good way to put it. But I mean, seriously, Alysse, I know that you know, we joked around and you know, we poked you guys a little bit to actually get noticed, but I'm glad we did. But
I'm glad I got poked, fellas. I'm glad I got poked.
I'm gonna leave that one alone for the moment. But I know you've listened to the end of our episode, right? When Mike
I
Okay,
have. Yes, I
perfect.
have.
Well, it's time for that. But I mean, Alysse, seriously, thank you so much. I know we'll talk soon, but you and I are going to be quiet for a minute and let Mike close us out.
Well, thank you everyone for listening to another episode of Sober Not Mature. Alysse, we want to thank you very much for being a wonderful guest tonight. Sober curating us. It was lovely. And now it is that time, kids. It is time for you to fuck off. Then keep fucking off. Keep fucking off till you get to a gate with a sign on it saying you cannot fuck off past here. Climb over the gate, dream the impossible dream, and keep fucking off forever.
I still, to this day, and we've been doing it for so many goddamn episodes. I don't even know. I just fucking laugh every time because usually it's just a little edit. It's just great. I love it. It's and people throw it back on us all the time. People tell us to fuck off on Instagram all the time. It's wonderful, absolutely wonderful.
Mhm.
So
Please keep telling us to fuck off.
it makes us laugh and it makes us very happy. It warms that.
Oh, it's your
Mhm.
love language.
I know, it really is. It really is. But no, seriously, Alysse, thank you again for everything. And like I said, I know we'll talk soon. Mike, I love you, brother. Enjoy yourself this weekend.
I love you
And
too.
we will talk soon also. And everyone, have a great evening. Bye.
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 As always, thank you for listening to another episode of Sober, Not Mature. To access all of our content and interact with us, please visit our website, SoberNotMature.com. Thank you again for listening, and we will talk to you soon.